Hello and welcome on in to Against the Storm Let's Play. This is episode 1, sort of after the tutorials, and this is just the final bit of the tutorial that they show us, which is here they're explaining what happens when you do start a new city, and that you get to kind of choose what people you take with you, and obviously that has different effects. Also get to choose what difficulty level you want whenever you start a new town. Does warn you if you're inexperienced not to pick the hard one. Yeah, I'm not going to pick the hard one. And then also that you get to choose bonuses that you can take with you, and you get some points every time. So obviously the further you level up in the game, the different kind of bonuses you're going to be able to get, and obviously the different places you pick as well, you will maybe get different bonuses. And that is the official end of the tutorial. If you haven't seen me do the playthroughs of the tutorials, I will put a link up here to the latest one. You can go check that out, but I have done all those as videos as well, so you can see what the tutorials teach you. And now we are on to our first proper mission to embark, and we choose ourselves a mixture of lizards and beavers because I think it makes the most sense, and then we set off on our mission. As soon as you load into a brand new map, it gives you here the benefits and the badnesses, like the buffs and debuffs, I guess, of the land that you've chosen. So this one has some mysteries. I like the fact that it's got worms after the rain, so when it rains after that you'll be able to collect more insects, which I think is quite cool. And then also it has these negatives buffs, which are like looming darkness, so basically the hostility of the forest is coming for you. And I think it's just a really nice thing that it loads in and tells you. Also lets you know the gifts of the woodland, and because we're a settler level, that's kind of the resources that we get. And then straight away we start here with our town. Now almost as soon as the game begins, you have to start making choices about what kind of camps and buildings you're going to want. So you can choose a forager or a trapper. Again, I just make the choices that I think make sense to me, and I'm not saying at any point that these are the best. As I said, this is my first time going out on my own. When we played the tutorial, we did not have a choice between 3 buildings every time, so it's a little bit more difficult, but I kind of go for the things that I think make sense. It is a woodland area, so I do end up, I think, choosing the carpenter here, and that does make sense because it's a very woodland based area. Also then you get the option of the leather worker, the bakery, and the rain mill. Again, things we hadn't really seen before in the tutorial, so I was a bit stumped as to which would be the best choices, and it does kind of throw you in there to be like, hey, pick your buildings, and I feel they were probably really important decisions, and I probably didn't spend enough time on them. I then put down the basic buildings, so the original buildings that we're going to need in the game. So I make sure we've got a woodcutter going, and then I have got the little gatherer hut down here. One thing I would say is I'm really grateful at this point that the map pops up and tells you what each building needs, because I think I always forget, and I think the fact that as soon as you choose a building and it pops up glowing like this is where the resource is, it does make it really handy to just pop stuff down and to make sure that everything's in the right place. And then the other thing I do is I immediately start building some houses. In previous, in the tutorial, I don't feel like I ever gave anyone enough housing to live in, and I didn't really realize it was a massive component, but I have been reading up on it, and I have learned that actually the need to make sure that you do get enough houses for your settlers, it really affects their happiness, which does make sense. It's a forest that never stops raining, and I wasn't giving them shelter to put over their heads. I think that kind of makes me a mean leader. This map, as well, as you can see, has a lot of dangerous glades lying around, so that was quite interesting to see. And then it also popped up with some hints about sacrificing. So it's basically saying here is that in order to keep the fire burning, you can sacrifice various resources that you've had to make sure the fire is always burning, and it's really important the fire in the hearth always stays burning. Now, it's not something that necessarily will come straight away, but it is something you will need to look at some point. And then it also tells me about the hostility and the forest. So basically the forest doesn't want us there is the vibe that I get, and the more that we build and certain things that we do increase the hostility of the forest and make the forest unhappy. And when that hostility is going, you can get certain debuffs. So for example, your villagers are just massively unhappier, or certain things produce less resources. So it is really important that you do keep an eye on the hostility of the forest, and as you kind of level up, it goes up alongside you. So once all the buildings are done and the path kind of gets finished, we have a good look around. So as I said, there's a lot of dark forest glades this time. Obviously, I don't think we're in a position to get through there yet, but I have said the woodcutters up to the north there, just cutting through to get into some glades, because the space we've got, and actually that you start with, is really limited. And then we get a cornerstone. This is something that benefits you as you go along, and it's just something you can keep an eye on. They offer us between a blood price contract and a metallurgic prophecy, which I'm disinclined at the moment to use any of the things that seem to be damaging to my villagers, which is a little bit probably restrictive. I know at one point we did get a cannibalism choice in the cornerstones, and I didn't pick that either. So I do think that you kind of have your own choices about which one of these you use. But as you can see, now my people are just kind of plodding along and doing their thing, and they seem quite happy in the world. I realise here that there's probably some more types of buildings that I should have plopped down. I did only use woodcutters and like the trappers and the gatherers. So I have a look through trying to remember what exactly was a good idea to have down at this stage and have a look at some of the buildings we've been given. And I propped down the crude workstation just because I know that's going to produce some of the resources we're going to need in order to build some better kind of buildings. And then I have a look through what else we've got. Obviously there was the carpenter that we unlocked early on. There's also a leather worker, and then there's also decorations, which I know are important for the game, and just other things that you can do as well. At this point, I don't really make any choices regarding that. I just kind of have a look at what I've got, and straight away we are through to another clearing. Now, the observant ones among you will notice there's been a little flashing thing in the top corner that I've pretty much ignored for a little while now, and even now watching this back, watching it, it's annoying me that I haven't clicked it. But what I have realised is coming into this one, we have found some new resources. So we have found some new things that we can build. And one of the things that we found is actually stone resources. So interestingly, there's like skeletons that are fossilized that you can use in order to create stone, which is very handy because at this point we hadn't actually had any stone resources. Any stone resources. So I finally noticed the message, and this is where it's slightly different. So for every quest / objective you get, you actually get a choice. So this is something we hadn't seen in the tutorial and something new. So the rewards for each one are different, the goal we're trying to reach are different, and what you kind of get as points from it are different. So we go through and you can pick. So this one wanted us to pick some events and complete glade events, which I thought would be quite easy. Again, we then get another one where we need to either get a pack of crops, or we need to do some things in the glade. And at this point I did keep choosing the glade ones because I knew that my intent was to kind of expand our land and to get more space. And then when I looked at this one, I didn't really think either of them were possible at the time, so I was a bit confused about which one to pick because I didn't know where we made packs of building materials. So I made the choice not to pick either of them just until I kind of figured out what was going on. But as you can see, we did get into one glade and we do have some beavers in there that seem quite happy. I decided to pop another beaver in just to make that a really effective worker, and then I tell them also a new area of like wood to chop through just to kind of give us that area that will open up these glades, because now it's an objective as well, and your objectives do pop up in the top right there, so you can keep an eye on them, track them the whole way through. And like I said, you will always get to choose which objectives that you want out of the two that presented to you, which I do think is a nice feature, because sometimes you get objectives that seem impossible because they're not the way your like village or your town has gone. And this gives you the option to kind of guide the way you want it to go. Here I realise that they're probably getting my one little woodcutter to cut too much, so I really focus down and give them just a narrow area that I want them to focus on, in a hope that that gets them to the glade sooner. And this is the point that I realise that these are stone resources pots over here, and that what I need is a stonecutter's camp, and I do pop one down here because I finally clicked that that's what that was. So after a little while, the glade does open up. Now, I do like these little things when a new glade opens up. You get that little circle, and wherever you are in the map, it'll point you in that direction just to make sure that you go check out your new glade once you reach it. And I think that's a really helpful little tool this game does. And here, again, if you've seen it before, you do get to make choices. So basically what you're trying to do is get your little people to complete the mission and the event in the glade. But each one of those does require resources, so it is worth keeping an eye on what it's actually asking you to provide in order to do that glade event. Because a lot of the time I don't pay attention to that, and it does end up kind of shooting me in the butt, because what it does is it assigns a worker to it even if they can't complete the mission. So when you've got low numbers of people, which is what you have at the start of a game, and you're assigning them to something they physically can't do, it's an absolute waste of your staff and resources. Again, I've said this before as well, but one of the cool things about this game is the way to move resources around. I really like how easy it is to move the wood cabins so that you can focus on different areas of wood chopping, and how easy it is to move some of the other buildings as well, because obviously resources do run out, and the thought of having to then pull the building down and rebuild it is slightly frustrating. So I do think it's a good idea that you can move these buildings. Maybe I move them a bit too casually sometimes, but I do still think it's a really cool feature the game has given us. At this point I decide I want to pop my carpenter down because it was a building that I unlocked, and also because I've realised that we do need some kind of tools in order to be able to get these done. And once I've realized that no matter which path you take, it requires the tools, I'm kind of a little bit frustrated with that, and I realize that I'm not going to be able to get that mission done. And also the other thing you'll notice, the people carrying, they're a lot more efficient on the pathways, so it is important to have the paths, not just because the game looks prettier that way, but honestly just because the people carrying the resources are so much more faster and effective when you've given them a pathway to be able to do it. Here again, this is just me telling the woodcutter where I'd like them to cut, because my goal is to get into as many glades as possible. Like say I have a quest to get into 2 glades and also to do 2 glade events. These guys down here are pretty dormant, they're not really able to do anything, and we do need them to make some planks because that's what we require for the building. But you will see here that one of the problems is I've actually run out of builders because all my people are used up, as discussed, because I've got them assigned to a glade event that they can't actually do because they don't have the resources necessary to do the glade event, which is a little frustrating. Another thing I will say at this early stage is I have definitely got the wrong people in a lot of jobs just because I had such limited people throughout the game. So when you've only got lizards and beavers and a limited number at that, it's really, really hard to make sure you've got the right people in the right place, because humans want to do certain jobs, beavers want to do certain jobs, but having them limited like this, it means that everything's not really working as efficiently as you'd like, and it's really important that you do try and kind of work towards the goals that get you more people. The sooner the better. At this point, obviously, we do speed the game up because we are just on a waiting game. We're waiting on having enough planks, which is what we've kind of got the crude workstation working on. We're also just letting them finish the pathways because, as I said, the pathways just make everything more efficient. And we're in like the storm stage of the game, so everything just goes a little bit slower and a little bit worse during the storm. Everything's just not as happy. The good thing is that after the storm, we do know we will be able to get more resources because we do know that we have that perk of the worms after the storm. But also during the storm, everything's just a little bit harder to do for our little peeps down there. So it is something to bear in mind that, you know, your efficiency drops. There's quite a lot of things actually that can affect your efficiency in this game, and the storm is kind of just one of them. I think the main one is actually where you're putting the people. So lizards in the right spot, beavers in the right spot, everything like that really sorted and really well looked after. But I did build another shelter there, so we do have some more people that are actually able to have houses. And also here I'm putting the priority up of wood planks just to make sure they're not spending their time building anything other than what I actually need them to build, because I really do need those wood planks in order to be able to build the carpenter, and the carpenter's going to make us the tools that we need so that we can do the glade event. And that's just one of the basics of any game like this. You find that a lot of stuff, it's like a linear pathway, but if the chain's broken at any point, so if we're not making wood planks or we're not making the tools, it does really affect other areas of gameplay, and you can't really get into it as much as say you might like. And this, like I say, is just us waiting. And it does take a little bit of time. We are still waiting for the resources, but at this point we get some villagers looking to come in, which makes me very happy because I have been looking to get some humans and an extra lizard in there because we definitely have enough beavers. And then we do also get the next cornerstone. Now, some of these cornerstones say that no trade can happen, and other ones actually help the trade happen. I tended to avoid any of the ones that meant that no trade could happen. One reason, I hadn't actually done any trade yet. Second reason, I was actually really excited to see what the trading looked like and to be able to buy some of the resources we've been missing. It was at this point I decided to pick my next quest, which was the trading stone one, and to go out of, like, make that a mission to get that building built. We are still, as you can see, waiting on having the right people in the right place to get those tools built, because we still don't have enough planks to build our lovely carpenter there. They are without resources. You'll see the little symbol above it. There's two different ones. There's a symbol to say I'm out of resources and a symbol to say I'm out of people. And this is me also just reassigning people around to make sure that all the people are in the right place. So is everyone working where they should be working? Are all the buildings as full as they can be? And it's really important every time you get an influx of people that you go back around and check these things, because I think it's definitely one of the things I wasn't looking at as often as I should have, and it's one of those things that really does help, like I say, the efficiency of your gameplay. But I think definitely this first playthrough and this first non-tutorial village has taught me a lot about managing my resources, and also really watching it back just to chat about it with you guys is always really helpful to see with hindsight the things I could have done differently. The other nice thing we've got now is that we have multiple kind of objectives running at once. So here we go through to a glade, which opens up a new spot for us, which was obviously one of our missions. So we are able to get that, and we tick that off, and we actually get some goods. Now, one thing you'll notice there is we actually got the tools we needed in order to complete this mission that we were trying to do. So I'm now able to assign some people to it, pick the outcome that I want, and then press investigate. So the outcome I wanted in this case was actually to build my reputation, because I need the queen to be a bit happier, because at the moment the negative is definitely outweighing the positive. This one was to place paths as an objective, which should not be difficult for me because all I do is place paths. And then also this one was another one where we either had to have something for the human clan, or we had to sacrifice some things. I wasn't prepared to sacrifice yet, so I chose the other one. And once again, now we have 4 quests on the go, and I really like that, because I think when some things are slowing down, you've definitely got the benefit of other things being able to speed up, because you've got multiple kind of angles that you can be working towards as a team. The problem we do have is, once again, I've taken all my people and I don't have enough people to do anything. So that's a little bit frustrating because no one's able to build. You'll see there, that's the little symbol I was talking about, which is like a, hey, there's no builders for you to build this building at the moment. We also have unlocked ourselves another type of building, so we can choose whether we want a weaver, a clothier, or a provisioneer. I choose a clothier. Again, that was probably a really quick look, and I probably should have thought about it more. And I think that's one of the things that definitely you do end up kind of rushing through some decisions, and it's probably not the wisest move I've ever made in my life. This is just me moving my woodcutter to try and get these trees cut down so we can get into another glade. And again, I immediately place a path towards that woodcutter. One of the reasons I'm placing all the paths, obviously, is because it is a quest, but also because I see the benefit in having them. Now, obviously, these guys here have just finished doing this event and are therefore taking the resources back. As soon as they drop those resources off and that's all secured, we should then have the builder that we need, and we should be able to get things done. We do also here pop up another glade open, and you'll see that we've got quite a few resources there, which is really good to see. Our little woodcutters are working very hard, but they do seem to be doing a good job. And once again, I just kind of give them a new territory to get through to, because I'm very conscious that we have not a lot of space in the game at the moment. There's not a lot of building space, and everything's feeling very cramped and very tight. Now, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. One thing maybe I should have done is maybe told my lovely little people to actually just focus on the areas around them and expand that clearing. Maybe we didn't need to go into everywhere. Maybe we could have just expanded things. But I made my choices. Now, one thing there, you'll see that was a carpenter and I put a lizard in it. It probably should have been a beaver. And again, hindsight, wonderful thing. I should have immediately found a way to free up a beaver. But the beavers are all in the woodcutters' huts, so I feel that it's important that they stay there. We are also getting our first kind of couple of pings that we are getting, running out of the original resources. And as I said, it makes me happy because we can move stuff. I knew I had some insects up here, so I chose to move the trapper up there. Is it a trapper? I think that one's a trapper. Scavenger, maybe? I don't know. There's a lot of names for a lot of things. But I chose to move them up there so that it could keep getting us the food that we needed. We've also got some buildings being built, and the one that's being built there on the left is the trading post, which I was very excited about. I really wanted to get that built. And then I also plopped down the weaver, just because we've had access to some of these buildings. Or was it the clothier? I popped down another, like, in construction building. One thing I realised as well is you are only allowed to build shelters or houses within the circle of the hearth. So it is a limited area that you can build these houses. And I've been tending to build up my industry around the hearth because that feels like it makes sense to me. That's where the warehouse is. And again, mainly due to limited space. However, one thing I will say is it's probably a bad idea because you run out of room to put houses in. But we unlock trading, which I think is really cool. So this is how it pops up, and you can kind of offer your goods for their goods. So you choose how many you want to offer. It gives you a monetary value. You can then choose what else you want to offer from your side, and it then has all the other options on the other side of what this particular trader has. So it has 2 sets of options worth bearing in mind. The top things are all resources, and the bottom things are unlockable. So they're things that you would potentially want. So they're things, yeah, like beneficial agreement, which makes trading better. There are all things you can kind of look into, but this one's money. So I'm like, hey, mate, what money do you want 250, and they give me like the amber for my goods. So basically all I did with the tradesman that time is sell, but having built that, I get the objective complete, so I do get a bunch of nice little resources popping into my world, and I feel like things are moving along quite nicely. We still have to complete some glade events, but that's absolutely fine. We just will hope that we will unlock them. We're also there setting up to make some more resources. You'll see from the carpenter's struggling to make the resources because it doesn't have the initial ingredients that it needs, but that's just on us to make sure that we are creating them. Here I made a rain farm, I think it's called. That's what I just plopped down. Again, I'm plopping a lot of the buildings. Like if I haven't got one of them down, I'm just pressing them down, because I feel like everything at some point is going to be important, and I think it's good that we get that structure starting to build now, and we start to get the resources kind of coming in that we need. Again, I've probably put them in the wrong place and don't necessarily copy my placing structure, because it definitely isn't helpful, some of the places I put things. However, again, I remember to put shelter down. However, no, we have 4 houses and we have about 30 people in our house, so we're definitely not quite there where we need to be. We get another completed objective, which is pretty cool, and that also allows us to unlock a new place. So there's a rain mill, and there's also a cookhouse, and there's also a bakery. So we have options basically for making more refined or fancier food for our people, and one of the things that you do know is that in order to get good esteem, they do want that. Also finally unlocked the small farm, which makes me happy because I do worry we weren't getting enough food, and we did already have the fertile ground. I'd spotted it earlier on. I just knew that I didn't have the farms and therefore couldn't use the fertile ground the way I wanted to. We also at that point didn't have any humans, and it's important we have humans for the farm. I am really at this point kind of wishing that we had more kind of people popping up. I feel they popped up a lot more often in the tutorial than they have been doing in the actual gameplay, but hopefully we are going to start getting some more people, because I do feel like we're really struggling just to have the people we need in the places that we need them. So a little bit of time has gone by now. You can see we're starting to get some of those buildings built. We do not have the people to fill them currently. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Why did I build buildings that I definitely couldn't fill? But you see there we get a glade unlocked, and this glade has a glade event in it, which makes me very happy. And all it needs from it is vegetables, but we could get some more people from that. I have 1 person that I can send on that mission, so I do just that. It's not an ideal scenario, I'm not going to lie to you, but this is what I'm trying to do, because I'm hoping to get these people, once this event is complete, into my building. Also, we do then get the people popping up, and I can choose again what kind of people that I want, and I choose the mixture because I always think the mixture is a good idea. And we then get our cornerstones again, and I pick the spices just purely because I refuse to pick the one that says no trade can happen. We don't have any new objectives to unlock, so now we're just waiting. We do then get to another glade, and again, I'm always very grateful that these things pop up. And you will see right here, we suddenly had an influx of people because the event has finished, and it means that we can assign people where they need to be. Now, one of the things you will notice on every building is it kind of gives you a little symbol of what the people like, and then if you click on that people up there in the left, it also matches that symbol. So it shows you that beavers are going to do better on anything that involves technology, just like we know that people are going to do better with food, and we know that the lizards do really well with the meat-based products. I think my town is coming along quite well. I just, as I said, have a shortage of people. I'm hoping that will be resolved relatively quickly. And I do also need to stop assigning all the people to all the things, because obviously when that does happen, I do end up without having any builders. However, completing that event does get me some more people. It also makes the town pretty happy, and it unlocks us a new building type. And I choose here, because we are in a woodland area, I choose the beaver house. We have more beavers than anything else, and I pop that down for everyone to see and to hang out in. And that's where we're going to wrap up part 1 of this Let's Play. We've done some good progress. We've definitely unlocked a lot of glades. And if you want to check out that tutorial, I am going to link it here for you to keep an eye on and see what happened.